Thomas Sowell, regardless of his race, he's black, is one of the 100 most significant economists of the 20th century. Tom has not been honored by the committee that hands out Nobel recognition in economic science, and probably won't be because he's controversial. And I reckon that committee would be loath to encourage the blowback that they would be sure to receive if they were to take a controversial and politically focused and expressive black conservative and honor in that way. Thomas Sowell, he's in his 90s now. He's been around for a long time.
He still got it. He's still going at it.
He's still going at it. Books continue to come out. I think he's a great man. I think Thomas Sowell, regardless of his race, he's black, is one of the 100 most significant economists of the 20th century. He has chosen as his subject, a substantial part of his subject, to investigate the deep causes and consequences of racial disparity of one kind or another. He's written fundamental books about that, many of them. He's a social philosopher. He is an economic historian. He is a combatant in the conflict of ideas around how to think about society, and this beyond racial differences, although race has been a big part of what he's written about. He's been critical of affirmative action, and he didn't just stand back and wag his finger. He got busy looking at the consequences of affirmative action in societies all around the world, and he's written books about that. He's been critical of the narrative about civil rights and racial inequality. He believes in small government. He doesn't think that efforts to redistribute income have proved to be the solution to the problem of racial disparity. Tom has not been honored by the committee that hands out Nobel recognition in economic science, and probably won't be because he's controversial. And I reckon that committee would be loath to encourage the blowback that they would be sure to receive if they were to take a controversial and politically focused and expressive black conservative and honor in that way. So I think another reason is that Tom, as a methodological matter, is not especially quantitative. He pays attention to data, but he doesn't do statistical analysis, and he doesn't do modeling. So from a methodological point of view, he's not a cutting edge, kind of mathematically sophisticated, kind of quantitatively, statistically oriented. But he does descriptive stuff. He writes in a style that is much more like a social historian than it is like a mathematically trained analytical economist. On the other hand, he is an economist in the Chicago school with Milton Friedman and George Stickler, prominent amongst his teachers, who takes price theory, which is the analysis of the interplay of market forces, mindful of incentives, and so on, to implement the basic insights from economic science. There is no free lunch. I mean, there's always going to be a cost to anything that you do, and so on. People respond to incentives. Demand curves slope downward. Competition tends to work best when people are free to enter and not, and so on. I mean, that kind of thing. But Tom is also a social historian and philosopher in the tradition of Friedrich von Hayek. One of Tom's books I deeply admire, Knowledge and Decisions, is an extension of the Hayekian arguments about the limits of central planning and whatnot. So I think Thomas Sowell, African-American, born, as I understand it, in Louisiana, raised in New York City, graduate of Harvard College, a military veteran, a PhD in economics from the University of Chicago, a black conservative social scientist of very high stature. I think he's a great man.
And one of the great intellectuals of the 20th century. And you're saying implicitly deserves a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, Hayek was awarded by the committee. Gunnar Myrdal, the Swedish economist, wrote about economic development, wrote a famous 2-volume work, An American Dilemma, about the status of blacks. And I mean, I think Tom could be put in that company very easily without any difficulty.
I agree. Daniel Kahneman, them. So it doesn't have to be numerical.
Psychologist, he's not an economist.
Yep.
Eleanor Ostrom, the political scientist who was honored in a joint prize given to her and Oliver Williamson 15 years ago or so. He could be put in that company really quite easily.